Okay, welcome into Another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by ABC, Fine Wine and Spirits, and of course Titan MRI. We love those guys for being our title sponsors. And of course, you can watch us on YouTube or Facebook Live. I totally blanked on what you can watch us on, but you can also listen to us on 30 plus platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer. Do they play Weezer songs too? They should play Weezer songs. Overcast, iHeartRadio, Player.fm, Stitcher, WRUF.com. There's so many ways you can listen to the podcast. And we know we have a great audience because we keep getting sponsorships, and we'll talk about those going forward. I did want to start the program out with some sad news, and I'm sure you hate to wake up to anything like this, but Kentucky basketball player Terrence Clark, who had declared for the draft, killed in an auto accident today, and I guess it was yesterday, and just so sad. I mean, the guy was a really good player, life of the party. Everybody loved him up there, and I never met him, but a lot of people had great things to say about him. Got hurt after playing only 10 games, came back, tried a little bit at the end, but by then things had gone south for that Kentucky team. But the real sad news is his teammate, Daryl Boston, was behind him in the car and saw it happen. So think about what the trauma that those guys are going through. So I'm just trying to send prayers out to the families of both of these kids, because in the end, games don't matter, lives do, people do. These two people, the HBC brought by this picture, and this is a great picture. I don't know if you can really see it that good, but this is a Pat Dooley and date, 1995. Okay, I really think I got a lot going here. I got a little mullet going, I've got a little snark, a little bit of attitude. I'm only a 40-year-old man. I really think I'm pretty special. The woman next to me, though, is a knockout, just beautiful. One of the most beautiful people, maybe the most beautiful people I ever met. This is our first ever date. This is my wife. We walked in, Spurrier said, "Pat Dooley's here, Mrs. Dooley too." She's like, no. This is our first date. See, Steve knows all. He sees all. So he was able to figure that out. All right, we have a great show for you today. David Cloninger from the Post and Courier, who covers South Carolina, will join us in just a little bit. Also, Dari Nowkhah, you know him from Rally Cap, and you know him from ESPN and everything. So he does a great job as well. Draft week is finally here. I'm happy that it's here, mainly because I'll be happy when it's over, but it certainly is. There's a lot of interest for Gator fans. They're fascinated to see what happens with Kyle Pitts and where Kyle Trask goes. Does Kadarius Toney go in the first round? Kind of funny. They all start with a K. Maybe that's significant. This was interesting to me. You wonder why Alabama. We all know why Alabama's so good and because they get the best players, number one, and they have the best head coach who knows what he's doing, and then he's bringing these assistants and he plugs them in. Of the 13 people who will be in Cleveland for the draft, 4 of them are Alabama players. It's just more positive publicity for Nick Saban and that program, and it's never going to change. It's always, until he leaves, they're not going anywhere. In fact, I think I'll probably pick them to win it all this year again. I was right last year. Also, tomorrow, Monday night, they're going to show the Florida behind-the-scenes thing. I think it's a 2-hour show. That's at 9 o'clock on the SEC network. And in lieu of a spring game, Florida didn't have a televised spring game, they will have that feature, and they do a good job of those things. I'm sure it'll be fun to watch. We'll talk a little bit about Gators baseball, Gators softball. We'll get to 3 things: Leonardo's Millhopper Quick Picks, Adams Rib Company. I got a great Gator of the Week, and we're going to monitor. I'll give you a hint. We're going to monitor the men's tennis today because they're playing for an SEC championship. They already won the regular season, trying to win. We got the Friday football fix. This, that, and the other. We got so much stuff to talk about. And right now we're going to go talk to the great David Cloninger, who does a great job for the Post and Courier covering South Carolina. And you do have a spring game going it's tomorrow, right?
Yeah, that's right, Pat. Well, it was supposed to be tomorrow, but there's going to be a massive thunderstorm rolling through Columbia, so it actually got pushed back a day. It will now be played on Sunday. But yeah, it will be on Sunday, and that'll be the end of spring practice.
Sorry about that, David. I didn't have the thing all plugged in. But
happens to the best of us.
Yeah, well, and I'm not the best. We know that. So what? I mean, now that you've gotten rid of all the former Florida coaches up there, what's your impression so far of Shane Beamer? I mean, obviously you haven't watched him coach a game.
Right. Well, he's doing and saying all the right things, very energetic, very excitable, making all the rounds on campus, different sporting events, different student organizations, making sure that his name and his face are kind of out there whenever South Carolina and South Carolina football is mentioned. So he's doing everything. And, there's a nice feeling of, contentment, of hope, of enthusiasm for the next football season. But I think that's kind of standard practice whenever you get a new coach, depending on who it is. So that's all going to last until probably the first game. And then depending on how they play in that first game or their first loss, then, they'll kind of see what's really going to happen during football season.
Was that a shocking hire? And I don't want to say shocking. Were you surprised with that hire? Did you, again, they'd gone Spurrier, Muschamp, which was kind of a weird deal anyway. But to go for a guy like Shane Beamer, he'd been on the staff, right? So was that surprising to you?
Not at all. Once it became apparent that things weren't trending well with Will Muschamp, and then of course he was fired with 3 games to go, Shane Beamer was automatically probably the top candidate, or if not the top, then top 1A. You knew they were going to go after somebody, who would try to be, young and energetic, had a lot of experience. Of course, they probably would have preferred some head coaching experience. But, Pat, the main thing is that Shane wanted the job. A lot of people don't realize, saying like, oh, well, you could go get this guy, you can go get that guy. They got to want to come here too. And South Carolina is a difficult job. I think everybody knows that. Of course, they'll pay well. They have great facilities, but you still got to know that it's not a job you're going to come in and win 10 games every year. That's just not going to happen. So Shane Beamer was a guy that wanted it. He made it very clear that he wanted it. And because South Carolina knew that he did want it, they kind of had that ace up their sleeve and said, okay, well, they know they're going to have a guy that can take it, so let's see who else is out there. Billy Napier was really the only guy who I would say was close. But, they couldn't come to terms with an agreement. And once that happened, it was the same night the season ended on December 5th in Kentucky. They made the call, and Shane Beamer was the guy.
David Cloninger joining us from the Post and Courier as we're going to make our way around the SEC and especially games that Florida has, because it's talking season, right? I mean, that's you have a spring game, and then it becomes talking season that Sunday, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The spring game got pushed back to a Sunday because of rain in the forecast for Columbia tomorrow. But, it's spring football practice. I think a lot of people maybe know, but they're not really saying it right now. South Carolina's got some guys on their roster, but for a complete team, they don't have that. There's a lot of holes on this roster outside of some really good stars like a Kevin Harris, like the guys they have on the defensive line, like a Nick Muse at tight end. So spring game's just going to be a case of to try to go out there and see what's mostly different. Marcus Satterfield, the new OC, is talking about coming in and saying there's going to be a lot of elements of LSU's offense 2 years ago. I thought, okay, there might be a lot of those plays, but I don't think you're going to have the same kind of horses that you had at LSU 2 years ago. But, we'll see. Spring games are usually very vanilla. It's mostly just a chance for everybody to get out there and kind of get the cobwebs out. And I will say that while there's been no serious injuries, this spring South Carolina's had a lot of injuries. So there'll be a lot of key guys that won't be playing on Sunday.
So what is the quarterback situation look like? How do you think that's going to all play out? And look, I'm not a big believer. I think the only spring game that ever mattered was Steve Spurrier's first one at Florida when he decided, I'm going with Shane Matthews. I can't think of another spring game that really decided it, but how do you think it's all going to play out?
Well, right now it's Luke Doty's job to lose. That was kind of the, I guess, what we all looked at least going into spring practice, because he was the only guy returning who had experience. That said, they did sign a transfer quarterback in Jason Brown, who played at St. Francis, which is a little FCS school last year, and did very well. But he came in, and he's not struggling, but he's needing some time to pick up the playbook, getting some time to get used to SEC speed. So right now, Luke Doty is the starter, and we'll see how that carries on throughout the summer. If Jason Brown makes a significant leap forward, then maybe there could be some competition in fall camp. But right now, Doty's the guy taking the snaps with the ones.
It's really been startling to see all the quarterbacks leave there. Now, I know they were for different reasons, but, Helinski, who's like his name, Bentley, his name was escaping me there. All those kind of guys that you really thought at one time were kind of folk heroes around there, and then they then they just left.
Well, Jake Bentley was a starter for 3 years. Obviously, his supposed to be senior year, he got hurt in the very first game, and it was a season-ending injury. He decided to go ahead and try his luck elsewhere, and it's fair thee well. Go do what you want to do. He went to Utah to play for a year, and now he's actually going to play at South Alabama this year for his final season. Ryan Helinski, a guy who really came in and everybody knew his story and was thought to be the heir apparent. No, it just didn't work out that way. I think there's a lot of reasons on both sides for that decision, why it didn't work out, why everybody thought it would. But, they got Colin Hill in last year as a graduate transfer from Colorado State, and they said this is the guy that they want. He's the most ready. So he started most of the year. Helinski never really got a chance, and again, that was on both sides. And then Luke Doty got the call in the final 2.5 games. So, once the season was over, Colin Hill decided he was going to move on and try to grab whatever professional opportunity he had. And Ryan Helinski decided to transfer, and he's at Northwestern now. So it's a very thin room right now, but they feel they have their guy in Luke Doty.
You talk about how South Carolina is not an easy job, and I totally agree with you. But sometimes it's hard to explain to people why that is. There's kind of the fan base kind of has this persona of waiting for bad things to happen. It's so hard to explain, but again, the state of South Carolina, you can't just recruit the state. There are good players, obviously, the Jadeveon Clowneys and Marcus Lattimores that come through there. But so you've got to go outside. But sometimes you think back to Spurrier winning 11 games 3 years in a row, and it almost seems mind-boggling that he did that.
Oh, absolutely. Just because, that doesn't happen around here, Pat. I mean, it's no coincidence that when he won 11 games 3 years in a row, that's the 3 best seasons in program history. And they've had 4 seasons where they've won 10 or more games. 4. And he had 3 of them. So, it's just not done around here a whole lot. And, Will Muschamp was Will Muschamp. It was a bad decision from the start and it didn't end up working out. Yet, in year 2, Will Muschamp won 9 games. That was the 7th season of 9 or more wins here. So they've been playing football for over 125 years here, Pat, and they've just never really been good. I mean, it's important to understand the definition of the next word I'm about to say, which is mediocre. That doesn't mean bad. It means middling. That's the definition of that word, and that's what South Carolina football has been. I believe you'd have to check my math now, but there's something like 26 games above 500 all time. And they didn't get above 500 until Spurrier showed up and he put in 5 or 6 years. So that's the kind of program you're dealing with. And with the fans, that they want it so badly. They pack the stadium. It's a very loyal fan base, but they've been conditioned to expect failure because it's happened so many times. So, you look at it, and, of course, the Muschamp era was the Muschamp. But it's just a case of like, well, is it ever going to be elite? Are you ever going to be on a level of a Florida and Alabama and now a Clemson? And the answer, at least through 125 years, has been no. So if it's been no that long, why would you expect it to be yes anytime soon?
I remember in '84 being there for Florida State, was playing South Carolina in Columbia. And South Carolina beat FSU to a pulp. I mean, I went in the FSU locker room back when you could go to locker rooms, and all the players were getting stitches. I mean, they had just destroyed them. And, of course, then they lose to Navy and blow any chance they have of going to a big bowl. That, to me, was kind of the epitome of South Carolina football.
That's it. I mean, there's a reason why that game still stands out, why Navy is still the worst four-letter word you can say around Columbia, just because if you look at the backstory, Pat, that was the situation too. The coach then, Joe Morrison, the late Joe Morrison, had told them all year when they were 9-0 and number 2, don't listen to the reports, don't listen to the media, don't read the newspaper, don't watch TV. Well, he got off the phone after that Florida State game and walked out to practice and said, fellas, I just got off the phone with the Orange Bowl, which was the national championship game, back then, and said, it don't even matter what happens in the Clemson game. All you got to do is beat Navy, and they're in the Orange Bowl. Done. Well, wow. You see what happened. So no matter what would have happened, they win that game, they're playing for a national title. But they lost that game. They didn't. They beat Clemson, which is always good, but then they go down to the Gator Bowl, which wasn't a very good bowl to have back in 1984, and they get run over by Oklahoma State. So the best season at that point in program history ends 10-2 with no conference championship, no bowl win, no national championship. But you did get a rivalry win.
Yeah, it is amazing. But don't you – I would think, David, that for South Carolina fans, the success of Clemson is just – a constant gut punch that never goes away.
Oh, it absolutely is. And, it was the case is back in 1981 when Clemson won their first championship, it was very hurting. But what was followed? 3 years of NCAA probation because Clemson bought that title and the NCAA caught them. So after that, Clemson had good teams, even great teams, but they never got back to that level. Not until 2016 when Dabo Swinney arrived and, they started getting more recruits. And now it's just a case of you see what happened. That run of Clemson's success happened directly after South Carolina beat them 5 times in a row, which was a program record. So you can say what you want. Maybe it was just the worm turning. Maybe it was just Clemson getting together and saying, that's it. That's enough. We're not doing this again. And they rode that. But now they're on the type of success that South Carolina wishes they had from 2011 to 13, because after 13, they didn't build on it. It was that great year, that great run, and then it went severely downhill. Well, Clemson kept building on it. And now they're able to recruit national. They're able to say, do you want to be in the NFL in 3 years? And they're able to get those kids. So it's a lot of jealousy. It's a lot of hurt and about why that couldn't happen here. But, that's the way the situation is. And it's not going to change for quite a while.
At some point during talking season, I'm going to have to put together a list of the over-unders for every team. And I haven't really looked at South Carolina's schedule yet. But where would you put the over-under for this team right now?
The ceiling for this team is 5-7, more likely 4-8. And I say that just because the schedule is conducive in this sense that there's not a real big block of games that you figure, boy, you might lose 3 or 4 in a row there. Now, November's not kind, but you do have that Troy game kind of in the middle to break up a really harsh run of Florida, Auburn, and Clemson, even though all those games are going to be at home. So that's going to be a tough one, but I just look at South Carolina's roster and say, how can that roster and just a couple of superstars among it try to compete? Because the way you look at it, Pat, they're probably not going to beat Florida, Auburn, Clemson, Georgia, Texas A&M. So that's 5 right there. And then you look at Kentucky, which is a home game, but it's a solid football team. They haven't been able to beat a lot in recent years. And then you have a few toss-ups at Tennessee, at East Carolina, at Missouri. I'm not saying they're going to lose those, but I can't sit there and say they're going to win, not after they've won 6 games over the past 2 years. So it's going to be tough, even though they should start with a win. But that Week 2 game at East Carolina is going to have a whole lot of impact on how the season is judged.
I'm curious how Will Muschamp is perceived in that fan base, because here, the fan base couldn't stand. The media boys loved him. We loved Will. He was great to deal with, especially off the record. Everybody in the administration loved him, adored him. They hated to fire him. They had to wait till it got too toxic, and it kind of was the same kind of deal there.
Absolutely. The thing is, though, is that Will didn't get the grace period that he
Right.
got at Florida. When he was hired at Florida, he was the hottest assistant in the country, head coach in waiting at Texas, and it made sense. It's just things went downhill. And, of course, a lot of outsiders looked at that and said, boy, I don't know how you fire the guy when he's had a big season and then had some injuries, but it was Florida. And Florida wasn't used to losing like that. So you understand from a media perspective why he got the job here. Because when he sat down in a room with Ray Tanner, everything great about Will stood out. His love of the game,
Yep.
his knowledge of the game is unsurpassed. And Will can talk you into a lot of things. And they said, you know what? He's learned from his mistakes, and he's got it. But right away, from a fan perspective, it's like, wait a minute, let me get this straight. You're hiring a guy who was a failure just 2 years ago at an SEC East school.
Team, yeah.
And the thing that would never go away, Pat, would never go away. When did Will Muschamp get fired at Florida? A day after he lost to South Carolina.
South Carolina, yep.
So to me, it was always, you had a hiring process, and you had any candidate that you could possibly want, except one guy. There was one guy you couldn't talk to, and they hired that one guy.
Yeah.
And again, I thought I was going to have to eat a lot of crow after that second year because they won 9 games. And 9 games is not won around here a whole lot. But after that, it was pretty much a direct repeat of Florida. You had an injury-marred 3rd year, an even worse injury-marred 4th year. And then he got a 5th year because the buyout was too big to turf him after 4. And they got through 7 games and said, that's enough. So South Carolina, is going to be wearing that for a long, long time. And to answer your first question about how Will Muschamp is viewed around here, again, from a media perspective, I loved Will. He treated me great. He still does. He's a great guy to talk to. But there was a big difference between media, off the record Will, and public Will. And public Will didn't really get over with the fans. And when you compound that with a losing record, it's just not going to work.
All right, before I let you go, last thing I want to ask you about is another guy who I like, but sometimes people don't like, and that is Frank Martin, who was able to keep his job, which was a little bit surprising because we all thought nobody's going to get fired because of the pandemic. And then everybody fired their football coaches, and then everybody fired their basketball coaches that needed to. Frank Martin's a guy who survived, and I love the guy, but were you surprised at all with that?
Very much, because, I know how the whole deal went down, which was that they wanted to make a change. And they agreed to let him look around and see if he could find a landing spot, because that allowed each side to break apart without any embarrassment. The right thing to do for a guy that's done a whole heck of a lot around here. And to me, I thought he should be given another year, but I also understood the reasons to make a change, because ever since that Final Four, there's not been a lot of progress. But it just goes to show more about how the University of South Carolina administration can be run sometimes. And that is that the philosophy around here is that if you can screw up a glass of ice water, do it. They had, they knew that they were going to have to pay a buyout if they fired him, and they were okay with that. But then the politicians started getting involved. The board of trustees started getting involved, and all of a sudden it was like, no, we can't do it. So again, I think it's great that he's coming back, because if he does something with this team, it's going to be all because of him. That said, you have a situation that could turn very toxic, because he knows every bit that went down, just like all the media guys do. And it's going to be tough to try to survive that, if you have another bad season next year.
Yeah, absolutely. David, always great talking to you. I wish I would see you in Hoover, but obviously as a retired guy, I won't be heading out there. But it's always great talking to you and getting an update. Thanks a lot.
No problem, Pat. Thanks for having me.
All right, David Cloninger from the Post and Courier does a great job covering South Carolina, and I always enjoy talking to him. Often in the press box, he and I would get together. We kind of, after the game, and say, did you think about this? What do you think about this? Because it's always good to get another voice, another person to listen to you. If you want to get in here, you can get in on the Ironwood text line, 352-600-2300. Easy to ask a question if you have a question for me. But right now, it is time for 3 things presented by Hand Law. Hand Law is a Florida firm a Florida law firm which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by visiting its website at www.hand.law. The firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville, and we are thrilled to have Hand Law aboard as another one of our sponsors. We've only got one left, okay? If you want to get in, there's about the only thing left is a Friday football fix, and I'm going to stay with that until we get that sponsor. Okay, it is time for 3 things presented by Hand Law. Number 1, I have a feeling that about 3 years from now, we're all going to look back on this draft, and I don't just mean us in the South. I don't just mean us in the SEC. I think everybody's going to look back and go, man, that was some draft. That was some group of players. I just think there's something about the players in this draft. I just mentioned 4 guys from Alabama are going to be at the draft out of the 13. They're all going to end up being great players. I just don't feel like there are guys like Jamar Chase is going to be a great NFL player. I have no doubt. I have no doubt about almost everybody. I certainly have no doubts about Kyle Pitts. And to be honest with you, I don't have many doubts about Kyle Trask. I think Kyle Trask gets in the right situation. Everybody wants Tampa Bay to take him here because if he goes to Tampa Bay, you get a couple of years of learning under Brady, and that's an offense that's built on cerebral qualities, not necessarily on the strongest arm in the world. At any rate, I just think this is going to be a draft. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking to see if Kadarius Toney goes in the first round. I'm looking forward to some of the other guys and see where they go. But it's about the SEC, like it's always about the SEC. I just think what I'm trying to say is 3 years from now, 4 years from now, you're going to look back and go, man, that 2021 draft, that has some superstars in it, didn't it? And again, not all of them are in the SEC, but a lot of them are in the South, like the number 1 pick, Trevor Lawrence. By the way, today found out that en route to our prized slate for our can't speak English, for our golf tournament, the Bob Dooley Invitational, Urban Meyer sending out a signed Jaguars helmet. That's exciting. I'm glad to see that happen. Number 2 on 3 things presented by Hand Law. It is amazing for me to think that Florida's never had a number 1 pick, ever. We've had a couple number 2s, some 3s, but it's all about timing. Like, this is a perfect time for Trevor Lawrence to come out of the draft. For the draft, it might not have been last year. He might not have gotten picked first, but it depends on when you come out. Joe Burrow, obviously had a great year, so it was perfect for him. But I was thinking about great Gator players. All right, Wes Chandler, who's as good as, and had a great career, was the 3rd pick. He could have been number 1. Why not? But you think about the Ring of Honor or the Heisman. Spurrier was a 3rd pick by the 49ers, and again, they had a quarterback already and still picked him. Danny Werfel was number 99, the 99th pick in the draft. Heisman Trophy winner, set every record. Tebow was 25th. Emmett was number 17th pick. Emmitt Smith, the all-time leading rusher. Might have taken him first. That might have been a good time to take somebody first. Jack Youngblood, who's in the Ring of Honor and the Hall of Fame, was the 20th pick in the draft. Wilbur Marshall was 11th. Yeah, that was a no-brainer. Pick him. If you pick him first, you're going to be pretty good. It's just it's all about timing and it's all about perception. But it's strange to me that Florida's never had the number 1 pick in the draft. Number 3, as we go forward here, and again, this is we're having a bunch of spring games. There'll be more. I think there's some more next week as well. This is really an important offseason for this Florida football team, and we're seeing already the work of Nick Savage. It's not just important in developing your bodies. You guys have been through a lot. I get it. You've had to deal with a ton of stuff. It's about staying out of trouble and developing your minds as well, and making sure you study and you're ready when you come back. So if Florida has a great offseason, I think this team is going to be better than a lot of people think. That's my prediction right there. All right, that is 3 things by Hand Law. We'll take a break, and when we come back, hopefully be joined by Dari Nowkhah. We'll talk to him about some baseball stuff. Of course, he is a host of Rally Cap. And it's a great show. Love that show. We'll be back with more on Another Dooley Noted Podcast. This is Pat Dooley, and I want to tell you about my friends at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. I'm a member, and you should be too. It's the oldest Gator booster club in the world and a great place to meet new friends, network with prominent business people, and hear a great collection of speakers, including Dan Mullen, throughout the football season. Go ahead and give John Stevens a call at 352-222-8516 or sign up on the website, quarterbackclub.org. You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. Okay, welcome back to Another Dooley Noted Podcast, and it's a great pleasure to bring in one of the greats in the industry, Dari Nowkhah from the SEC Network, ESPN. I know you've watched Rally Cap, which is one of my favorite things, and it's funny because I sit there and I go, well, I just want Gator highlights, and then I sit there and by the time I get done, I go, I know everything about SEC baseball and softball now that I need to know.
That, Pat, I love that, man. I love that you watch that. We had this idea, I guess it might have been like 4 years ago, the first time we did it, where we realized there was no show in this league or any other, or even on a national level, that was dedicated to those two sports. And we are lucky. Now, by the way, sorry, I'm in a car. I'm not driving this vehicle. I'm sitting in my work parking lot.
Right, we thought you were on their way to Gainesville.
But we thought, in this league, unlike any other, there is enough genuine interest. Just look at the stadiums, baseball and softball on a given weekend, right? That we could carry a show once a week in the heat of the season. And we tried it and it worked, and we've got really creative people with us on the show. So, I get a lot of really good feedback on that show. I genuinely love doing the show. I love college baseball, and I have ever since I was a kid. I will admit I was not much of a softball follower. But this show has made me that, and I'm really, really enjoying that sport as well. So it's kind of brought me around to softball as much as it has to baseball, which I'm glad you watch it. And I think a lot of people do, and we're thankful for that.
It's amazing. Baseball's been around in this conference, and it's been really good in this conference for a long time. But softball, it was like, all right, we can win national titles in this. Let's all get good. And the next thing you knew, the SEC was one of the most dominant conferences. Obviously, Oklahoma's, where you're from, is in a different world right now.
Yeah.
But the SEC got really good really fast.
Yeah, and I think it was fun for us to see. And I know the office, obviously, the league office, has taken great pride in over the years. If it's like a race, it's a 2-car race, and the Pac-12 has had this lead forever. And then you just see the SEC creeping closer and closer and closer, and then driving right by it. Not to mention, not to say that the Pac-12 won't win championships. UCLA just won one a couple of years ago. Or that Oklahoma in the Big 12, who's won, I think, 4 since Patty Gasso got there, they're going to get their share, and they may be the best team in the country now. But on the whole, top to bottom, it isn't close to what this league has done. And it's, it's pretty cool because I think in this conference, whatever this conference decides, we're going to emphasize, or we're going to tell athletic departments to emphasize, they do. And, I work off, and she used to do the show with us on a regular basis. She hasn't for the last couple of years. I think she's with us this weekend. But Kayla Bro, look, she's a great example. She was an all-American everything out of Eugene, Oregon, and goes to the University of Alabama. And if you look at rosters on these teams around the league in softball, you see so many West Coast girls that could have gone to any Pac-12 school they wanted. But here they are in the Southeastern Conference, which really kind of says a lot about where we are as a conference in the sport.
It's a funny story that Stacy Nelson told me once. The reason she came here is she really liked those Gatorade commercials with Keith Jackson. She's like,
That's
that
amazing.
Sounds like a great place I'd like to go to school. So she inquired, and next thing you know, she became maybe the greatest player to ever play in Florida.
That's incredible. Whatever gets them here, keep them coming. The increase of softball on television, obviously not just the SEC network, obviously ESPN2. The Oklahoma Georgia, there was a doubleheader on Tuesday. One game was on the SEC network, one was on ESPN2. By the way, props to Georgia. Gave OU their first loss of the season in the first game. But getting to see that and seeing full stadiums, you can be a young lady growing up in Southern California and go to a UCLA softball game, and they might be really good, but there might be 1,600 people in there. And then you go home and you turn on a game in Tuscaloosa or Gainesville, and you see 7,000 people there, or whatever that stadium can hold, and it's full. It will make you think about coming here. And honestly, I think the same thing has happened in college football and in college baseball as well.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about college baseball is, the fever. And I think I'll give LSU the credit for kind of starting the fever, and where it was cool to go to the games, and this goes way back, to the Warren Morris home run and everything like that. But then Mississippi State, and they had Palmeiro and Clark, and now it's just grown. Everybody's good in baseball.
They are, and tonight, starting tonight, we've got Vandy, Mississippi State. Again, it's number 2 and number 4. We had 1-4, 2-6. I mean, 2 weeks ago we had 2 different weekend series where each team was in the top 6. I mean, what this conference does to the baseball rankings as a whole, dominating at the top 1 through 5 at one point this year in the D1 baseball poll. It's ridiculous, and I look forward to, Pat, I'm not gonna lie, I still get a little bit when I look at Ole Miss and Mississippi State and those stadiums as full as they are. I'm not I'm not to that point where I'm really comfortable with that. But nobody asked me. But I can envision what it's going to be like in everywhere else when it gets to that point. Bob Walker at Fayetteville's getting, I think they're at 50% now, and the new ballpark you guys have. I can't wait to see classic full stadiums weekend after weekend after weekend throughout this league. And Hoover's going to be awesome. I mean, Hoover is going to be, for the SEC tournament, we'll be there as a network again, and it'll be the first thing that I've gone to and covered live since we got called back from Nashville when they canceled the SEC basketball tournament in March of 2020. So, just being able to get back out there, I can't wait to see it. But it's going to be a special tournament.
Yeah, that is so weird. I've been to 1 basketball game, 2 football games, and 2 baseball games since all of them here in Gainesville, of course. But ever since that game, because I was in Nashville, I was at the basketball tournament and watched 1 game. Next thing I know, they're having a press conference, and that was to tell us that no fans are going to be allowed for any more games. And then by the time you got home, got up, got dressed, boom, dead.
Yeah,
nothing was going to happen.
It was amazing because that night when we got home, I turned on and saw the Jazz Thunder situation with Rudy Gobert, and then immediately. So I stayed up. I must have stayed up till 4 a.m, just obsessed with the coverage And then, you come in the next morning and they're having meetings and you just get an idea of what's going to happen. And within 4 or 5 hours, I'm on a plane home, and I haven't been on a plane since. It was pretty surreal. I mean, we've covered things as a company, as a network. They asked me to go cover the national championship game in Miami, Alabama, Ohio State. And I just asked, I said, my wife is high risk in a couple of areas. This was in January. I asked if I could say no, and they let me say no. And, now we're kind of ready to get back into it a little bit in a nice, safe manner. But what a ride it's been, man. What a ride it's been. But props to this conference and all of the athletes and the coaches that have allowed us to get through all these seasons. And also, when you're talking NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, they've all just continued on and done things the right way. And I can't believe we've gotten these seasons in.
You know this conference very well. What do you think football stadiums are going to look like? Because they're all basically saying, I talked to somebody with Florida last night, they're going to be wide open. But I know there are people who aren't going to be comfortable with it. There are people who are going to say, you know what, staying at home and watching the game wasn't that bad. I was okay with it.
It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper too, right? Yeah.
What do you think they're going to look like around the SEC?
I think it's going to be a lot like we're seeing now, to be honest, Pat. I think it's going to be up to the state, and the university can then make its decision within that state. If the Mississippi schools are wide open now, they'll be wide open then.
Right.
Texas A&M, same situation. But with the vaccines, they say not enough people are getting vaccinated to really create what we need in terms of a herd immunity. What will the numbers look like? What variants will there be? I mean, there's just science is changing all the time. It's hard to predict tomorrow, to be honest. But I think at the very least, it's going to look a lot like, at the minimum, it's going to look like what we have now, where states that are wide open, you'll see their football stadiums packed. And some may be at 50%, and some may be at 20%. It may look different in this league than it does in the Pac-12 or the Big Ten. I don't think we're going to have uniformity in terms of what stadiums look like.
Well, I appreciate coming. By the way, I was curious. I've never asked you this question. Is how you got started in the profession? How you started being a broadcaster?
Man, it's crazy. So I went to college I got a degree in broadcast journalism at OU, and then I just kind of took the path that most of us take. It's you just send out your resumes and your resume tapes, not reels or links anymore, but it was tapes. And I got my first job. I got an opportunity to go to a little town I'd never heard of in the northwest corner of Montana called Kalispell, right near the entrance to Glacier National Park. And I worked there, and I covered 4 high schools. That was what I got to cover, 4 high schools.
Wow.
For almost 2 years. And then I went to Lincoln, Nebraska. I took the next step up in a market size and covered the Huskers, which was really cool. And 2001 Heisman Trophy winner Eric Crouch, and they played for the national championship that year.
Don't bring that up. Don't bring up 2001 Heisman winner Eric Crouch. The Rex Grossman crowd is going to come after you.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, man, I got to know Eric really well, and I covered him every game of that season and the season before. I feel like he's always gotten shade thrown at him for winning it, and I've never seen an athlete quite like him. He blew me away every time he had the football in his hands. I'll be honest with you. I had no problem with him winning it. I thought he deserved to win it. I understand that Grossman had the great run here too, or Florida too, but it was pretty cool. And so anyway, I went from Montana to Nebraska to my hometown of Tulsa for a couple of years, and then in 2004 got an opportunity to go to ESPN in Bristol. So I was up there 7 years.
Yeah, so that was a big deal going to ESPN.
Yeah, it was, man. I mean, I was the bottom of my sports department totem pole in Tulsa, which in market size it was 61, and I was the number 3 guy out of a 3-person department. So I got fortunate to get the audition up in Bristol and to get offered the opportunity. So I was up there 7 years before I moved to Charlotte. I've been here 10 since.
I was going to say, I would prefer Charlotte to Bristol as a rule.
So here's a story. I don't know how much time you have. You got to go?
I got time. Yeah? No, I'm good.
You're good. So in 2011, we had been in Bristol 7 years, and about the last 6 of them, I was doing Sports Center and Baseball Tonight. I loved that part of it, but we really didn't like living there. And so they announced in 10 that they were going to start the Longhorn Network. Now, never thought I'd ever have any interest to do Longhorn Network, but it was a lifestyle thing. I live in Austin. Even though I'm a Sooner, it would have been crazy. It would have been a Gator, doing some Florida State Network, whatever. But or Georgia, right? But I was interested. And so I went to Stephanie Drewley, who was in charge of that startup. And I said, I'd be interested. I would be interested. She said, are you kidding? I did not anticipate any interest from this building. Let me talk to some people. I think it could work out for you. So I'm like, we're looking up houses in Austin. I'm telling my buddies that I went to college with. They're like, what? You're not going to wear that burnt orange crap, right? Like, I guess I could. I mean, if I had to. And anyway, we meet up a week later, and she says, you know what? I have come to discover that enough people within the University of Texas and around know where you went to college, and they're going to be uncomfortable with you hosting that network. So, but we got a guy at ESPNU in Charlotte named Lowell Galindo, who is a Texas native, who loves the University of Texas, who actually named his first child Mac after Mac Brown. What if we got him to come to Austin, you to go to Charlotte, and that's exactly how it worked out.
Wow. That's the thing. I think for good people, good things work out, and I'm happy for you. And it's great to see you all the time. It's always great to talk to you, and hopefully we'll see each other in a press box soon. That would be great. That would be great, Pat. It's always good talking to you. I appreciate it. All right, Dari. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You got it. Take care.
All right, the great Dari Nowkhah joining us again. We appreciate his time. And I think we'll go ahead and take a break, a quick break, and then we got to come back and we got to do all of our stuff, the fun stuff. Talking to Dari was fun, talking to David was fun, but this, that, and the other, all this good stuff that we do. Adams Ribco, fired up about it. Let's get that after we take this break on Another Dooley Noted Podcast. You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube, or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. All right, welcome back to Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And I was just checking the scores on the Florida and Tennessee and tennis, men's tennis. That's for the SEC tournament championship. And Florida's down 3-0 right now, but they're in all the other matches. They've won some sets. It's not over, believe me. This is a team that's shown great resilience all year. In fact, we will go to our Adams Ribco Gator of the Week, and our Gator of the Week is Blaze McNell, who yesterday, to get Florida the win, won his match. He's actually, I think he's split sets today so far to go to 19-0, but that gave Florida a 4-3 win. I didn't write this down. I think it was over Texas A&M. But he won in 3 sets, so that's great to go to 19-0. And, of course, Blaze McNell ended up taking his shirt off. What is it with the Gators winning games and taking their shirts off? So I just saw the picture of him with his shirt off, throwing his shirt off. But he is their Adams Ribco Gator of the Week, and I was by Adams the other day. The sign's up. It's almost ready to open, the Adams Ribco to go, and we're going to go over there and shoot a commercial probably next week, which will be fun to do. Can't wait to do that as well. Got my Adams Ribco mug up there. Is it on this side? This side, yeah. And so we appreciate everything he does for us. Okay, let us go to the next thing, which is the Leonardo's Millhopper quick picks. They're going to be pretty simple. By the way, Drew Berry came by. He got his stuff. He seemed to enjoy it. He got a couple really nice hats and a Gator shirt, and then a $50 gift certificate at Leonardo's. So he seemed very happy. Seemed like a really good guy too. All of our listeners and watchers are good people. We did have 2 qualifiers from last week, from the weekend, I should say, and that was Cord Robideau. I hope I'm saying it right, and George Luttrell. George Luttrell seems like he's in there every week, and he just never gets picked. Maybe this is the time you're going to get picked when we do our next drawing, which will be in a few weeks. You know, we like to kind of spread them out a little bit. But it's a pretty easy one again this week. We're not making things too complicated so that we can get a lot of people in, and we've been lucky to have a lot of people in. I will post them on Twitter and on Facebook. And you can even get in during the Florida baseball game tonight. But that's the first one. Florida versus Auburn. How do the Gators do? 3-0, 2-1, 1-2, 0-3. It's not hard. It's no big whoop. And, of course, Auburn's not very good. But the thing about Auburn that scares you, they're 3rd in the league in hitting. They've made 11 fewer errors than Florida. They've got some great stats. They just don't pitch it very well. And as much as Florida strikes out, who knows? So this is a big series for the Gators in terms of hosting, because they're going to make that decision in a couple weeks about who the host site's going to be. Florida's not going to be a national seed. We talked about this. But if you can get 2 out of 3 at least here, it's just going to help. Now, Florida's on a 6-game win streak, so if you're winning a lot of games in a row, it's going to help you get the seed for the regional. That's all Florida can hope for, is to get a regional seed. And then here's the thing: you're a regional seed. You win let's just say you win your regional. The team on the other side loses its regional. Although I think they're going to be. I think the way Jeff was explaining this to me, I think the regional sites that they pick are going to be the regional sites, even if the host team gets beat. It's going to be kind of like the year that Jeff pitched that great game out in Baylor and Waco, and Baylor was stuck there having to host everybody, and they went 2-out. And that does happen every once in a while, but it's going to be weird still if they end up doing that. So forget what I just said about Florida can still host. All right, so the other one is simple. Kyle Pitts, what pick is he? Now, the obvious answer would be 4, because everybody's saying 4. 3 quarterbacks in the Kyle Pitts. It may be. Could be 5, could be 6. Could be 3. Could be 1. How about if we shock the world and Florida finally has its first pick of the draft? Could be 6, could be 7. Who knows? But the obvious answer is 4. I think that's where he'll go. But don't blame me if you get it wrong. So those are the 2 things for the Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. Thanks so much to Kyle Cohen over there for doing such a great job and being a title sponsor of the Bob Dooley Invitational. We appreciate him so much. Florida, Auburn, how do the Gators do in these 3 games? And where does Kyle Pitts go? Not what city, what number does he go? So I don't want a bunch of answers like, Atlanta. That's not going to be that will be an incorrect answer. Okay. That's our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. Let us get to the Friday football fix. We're still looking for a sponsor for this. It's the only thing we have open. We're happy to entertain you. You know my number, 352-317-3444 for just a minute. I didn't know my number, but I remembered it at the last minute. But this is our 37th show on this podcast. If we can sell out, get this one sold, I'm going to be so happy that people have supported me. And we have another sponsor coming on in July. Can't wait for them to join us. Shaq Allen, Merck, and Donnie are going to come on in July. We got so much going on here. It's really a lot of fun. All right, the Daily Football Fix. It's interesting how Florida's got we talked about they don't have a number one pick, but they have a lot of guys who won an award, and they're the only Gator that's ever won it. I just started jotting them down. Only one Gator's ever won the Unitas Award, Danny Werfel. Only one's won the Remington, Marquise Pouncey. Only one's won the Thorpe, which I think there should have been more than one, Lawrence Wright, which was an odd thing to how he won the Jim Thorpe Award, because there was a guy, I want to say it was Canty, was the back who was so good. And I better not get his name wrong because of what happened. I think it was him. If it wasn't, I apologize to everybody named Canty out there. Chris Canty, was that his name? Maybe at Kansas State, I want to say. So anyway, during the season, he is going to be the winner of the Jim Thorpe Award. Everybody knows that he's so good, but he gets in trouble, and I can't remember what it was. It might have been a DUI, might have been something else. And so now all of a sudden they needed somebody. Here comes Lawrence Wright. Lawrence Wright, good guy, plays really well on a national championship team. Lawrence Wright, it ends up being, and good for him. It's all about timing. That goes back to what I was talking about with Florida not having any number one picks. It's all about timing. Okay, Chaz Henry won the Ray Guy Award, the only one. Judd Davis, the Groza. It's kind of weird. I don't know. To me, it's just kind of weird that you had all these people that could have won and just didn't win. So anyway, that's your Friday football fix. And if you want to get on as a sponsor, just give me a call. We'll be happy to do it. Finally, here on the show, and again, want to thank so much, not only all of our sponsors, but all of our great guests that have been coming on. Neil Anderson's going to join us on Monday if his daughter can figure out how to hook him up on Zoom. That is still up in the air right now, but I'm going to call him a little bit later today and find out if she was able to figure it out. So we're looking forward to having him on Monday. We'll have another, probably talk a little LSU on Monday as well. But it is time for This, That, and the Other, sponsored by Ballyhoo Grill, our good friends over at the Ballyhoo Grill. Dar Shakow Insurance, love them. Former sponsors of the Bob Dooley Invitational. They were the title sponsors for a long time. And Ironwood Golf Course, of course. We love Jeff over there. All right, so here is This, That, and the Other for today. The wealthiest owners in Europe with soccer teams say, we're going to start a super league. We're going to start a super league. We're only going to play each other. The heck with all you peons, pagans, whatever you want to call them. We're going to have this super league. All right, that's the this. The that is that over here, we have to Americanize it. We don't really care about those teams. But what if we had a super league in college football? So everybody with a talk show, everybody with a column, everybody with a podcast came up with who would be the 15 teams that would be in this super league. And then everybody got mad. Like FSU got mad because they got left out of most of them. Florida never get mad because I think they were in almost all of them, if not all of them. Some people were mad Nebraska was in some of them, but they haven't been relevant. And it was great talk during talking season. This is the kind of thing we do. We talk about things that don't seem that important at the time, but they are important because they're something to talk about. This deal with this European, with their owners, was a big deal. It's a huge story. This is the most popular sport in the world. The other is that whole idea went bust because everybody got mad and everybody freaked out, and the Prime Minister of England got involved, and nobody wants this. You can't do this. You can't just relegate us. And by the way, this will never happen in college football. You're not going to go to a 15-team power league. It's not going to happen. Now, what could happen? It may not happen until after I'm gone. But I won't be surprised to see at some point in college football, you end up with a bunch of, and we've talked about this, a bunch of 16-team conferences. And there are these but they're regional. They're still regional. You know, they're not like we're just going to take 15 teams. We're going to have Oregon and Florida and Texas. They'd still be regional, and you'd still play games. You'd play within your conference. You'd still have some others that you would play. You'd probably have 2 or 3. I think there'll be a point where we go to 13 regular season games. The players are getting all the power, and at some point, college football's will say, well, let's just play 13 games then. Why not? You know, you guys are making money off of it. You might as well play more games. Just a prediction on mine. And I don't get many predictions right. But I do have this prediction. We are done for the day. Man, I think we got it all covered. I had fun today. I hope you did too. And I hope you'll be back on Monday for another edition of Another Dooley Noted Podcast. Until then, I'm Pat Dooley. I'm deep. I'm way back. And I am out of here.